So, couple of sort of final questions, if I can. I mean, I want to talk a little bit about careers advice. You know, you touched on it in terms of some of the lack of careers advice out there. You spoke about your daughter as well, and putting things into perspective. I think perspective is the word there. And why, as a country where we keep talking about careers advice and lack of careers guidance, we're still not getting it right. Why are the again, you touched on this as well. Why are the schools sort of pushing the agenda that they've got with regard to the universities and the colleges, and in terms of going down the further education and the higher education route, and not looking at other alternatives, and why is it still the case that apprenticeships are seen as a second choice, not as an alternative choice, and as a choice there, and possibly I would say that the conversations that we're having now are probably the conversation that we were having even a decade ago, even sort of even 5 years ago. Same conversations, but it doesn't seem like it's going and in the direction that we all need this to go. So that there's a sort of a conversation that I just want you to touch a little bit about, and then we'll talk a little bit about the future to a certain level for yourself and for NHS England, and any words of advice for people out there generally. So two things there.
Yeah. So. I think there has been progress. It is very slow and very painful, but I think from the schools that I support in Barking and Dagenham and Havering, I have seen the change, because now they invite me in to engage with them in year 7, and I'll just do my generic 350 different careers, guaranteed if there's something that you're interested in, there'll be a job for you in the NHS. And I think by sowing those seeds at a young date, when I go back in year 10, year 11, they remember me and they're like, oh, I've decided I want to be a paramedic, or I want to be an IT technician, or whatever it is. So I think, we are moving in the right direction, hopefully, with the Baker Clause and all of that. I even had to speak to an Ofsted inspector recently for one of the schools that I work at. They wanted to talk to me about the careers advice that I do. So hopefully schools, once they realise that they are going to be penalised if they don't offer impartial advice, things will improve even more. But I think the challenge will come down to funding. And, I know this with my daughter's schools. They want to keep them for A-levels because they get that money. So are they really ever truly going to be promoting them to go somewhere else? My daughter, as mentioned, she got into, this super elite sixth form, and her school basically called and said to her, but they don't care about you like we do. To them, you're just the grades and going on. And you can't be doing that to a 16-year-old, but that just showed how desperate they kind of were. She had been one of their highest achievers. They wanted to keep her for A-levels. But I think, while schools are competing for that funding, the partial advice and guidance is always going to be for the traditional route. But there have been some small wins. One of the schools that I work with this year, for the first year, had degree apprenticeships as a positive destination. So little wins like that. And there was even someone going on to do a level 3 engineering that they celebrated. And I think that's huge, considering I've been talking about this for so many years. But yeah, I think, we need to raise the parity of esteem. The flip side of that, though, is the more apprenticeships become high profile, I worry about the impact on widening participation and diversity, because I've said that, with the work that UCAS are doing, which I'm really supportive of, the same kids that get that dedicated UCAS time are going to get the dedicated apprenticeship time. The schools in the more deprived boroughs or deprived regions where they haven't got the resource, they haven't got a dedicated person, I think that gap is going to be even bigger and they're going to be left behind. So that is one of my worries, that the more popular apprenticeships become, that the more competitive they're going to be. And even kind of judging the apprenticeship awards this year, for the first time, for the multicultural and for the national apprenticeship awards, it was people talking about choosing a degree apprenticeship for religious purposes because they weren't allowed to take out student finance. So that was an eye-opener for me, and I think that's going to become more and more of an issue. To me, a degree apprenticeship's a no-brainer. You get your degree paid for, you don't get into debt, and you've got a job. It couldn't be easier. And I think, that's the only thing I'm worried about, is that if we do improve the trajectory, that social disadvantage will become even bigger, because it will be the pointy-elbowed middle-class kids that can get could have done the traditional route are going to be getting all the apprenticeships.
Okay.
Canny Conversation Podcast Series 5 by Safaraz Ali.